Welcome to the Visual Studio Code setup video. So what we're going to do today is we're going to set up VS Code so that we can use it for development. And as a recap, VS Code is a code editor and it's made by Microsoft. The cool thing about it, though, is that it is fully accessible for screen reader users. So our first order of business is we need to actually download VS Code because we can't do anything without it being downloaded. So I'm going to go to my favorite internet browser. I like to use Google Chrome, but you can use any.
New tab dash.
So I'm in my Google Chrome and I have my screen reader activated so that everybody can follow along. I'm using NVDA on Windows 10. Okay, so I'm in my browser and what I will do from here is I will type the following in. So I'll go to my address bar and I'll type code dot Visual
code.visualstudio.com/downloads.
All right, and I'm just going to shut up NVDA for a sec. So what that URL did is it brought us to the download page for VS Code. As a word of note, there are two distinct versions of VS Code. There is stable and insiders. And the difference is basically how stable in the sense that they are. So insiders is released nightly. And it's awesome because Microsoft will help fix accessibility issues and, other enhancements, but it may be unstable at times. And then there's stable. And stable is still accessible, but it's updated every month instead of every day. And it's good if you want to just have a stable editor. For right now, what I will do is I'm just going to download the insider version because, so I'm going to now skip my heading until I hear something to the name of want to get new build sooner, download the insider build. So I'm just going to press H.
No next heading.
Or not, maybe I should go to the top of the page first.
Button. Main landmark download Visual Studio 1 new features sooner. Heading level 2.
Okay, I'm going to press down arrow.
Get the visited link insiders build instead.
Get the insider build instead. I'm going to press enter.
Download Visual Studio.
What I'm going to do now is I am brought to this page where it says download VS Code insiders. And from here, what I want to do is I want to press my T command, which is tables. And what that allows me to do is it allows me to skip to the table of different installers. So I am on Windows 10, but if you are on Mac, you would just download the Mac version and Linux and vice versa. Okay, so I'm going to press T for tables for NVDA.
No next table.
Or not.
Column 1 system and
actually, hold on. I got booted to the middle of the page. Let me try that again. So sometimes you may get booted to the middle of the page. So I'm going to press Control Home.
Out of main landmark Windows VS.
Okay. And I'm going to press Control Alt down arrow.
Not in a table set. Row 1 column 1 user and row 2 system installer.
So I heard user installer, system installer. And all I did was I just navigated the columns of that table. So it's basically a 2x3 or whatever table, and it has like user installer, system installer, and we want the system installer. So you can do the user installer. The difference is, however, the location that VS Code Insiders is installed at. So on a user installer, it will be installed in the user directory. And this can be good if you're like in a corporate work environment, or maybe you don't have admin rights to your computer. But for today's purposes, I want to just download the system installer, which will be installed in your standard program files. So I use my Control Alt down arrow and I found system installer.
Row 2 column 1 system installer.
I'm going to press down arrow.
Column 2 visited link Windows 64-bit system installer download link.
I'm going to press enter Windows 64-bit.
Documentate download.
And when you're on this page, VS Code will bring you to something that says documentation.
Download complete. VS Code setup dash.
Okay. VS Code setup's complete.
Selection
I'm going to go to my downloads folder.
Text folder view list. Downloads today. VS Code setup.
I'm going to press
File
enter on this.
Window dialog. Downloads window. Items view list. Setup.
And it should
Set
say
up
setup.
Microsoft Visual Studio Code Insiders Dialog License Agreement. Please read the following important information before continuing. Please read the following.
All right. Important license information. Yada. So I'm going to press tab.
I do not accept the agreement.
It'll say I do not accept. The only thing I really have to do here is press left arrow.
I accept the agreement. Radio button checked. Alt
and
plus
press
A.
Alt N.
To continue, click Next. If you would like to select a different folder, click Browse. Edit selected C. Program Files Microsoft VS Code Insiders.
That's fine with me. It's just asking about the path. I'm going to press Alt N.
To continue, click Next. If you would like to select a different folder, click Browse. Edit selected Visual Studio Code-Insiders. Select the additional tasks you would like set up to perform while installing Visual Studio Code-Insiders. Then click Next. Preview, Create and Desktop icon checkbox not checked.
So these are some additional tasks that you'd like set up to perform. So I would make sure that we customize these, and I'm going to go through these step by step. So the first one is create a desktop icon for VS Code. That seems pretty explanatory, but what it will do is it will create an icon that you can launch your VS Code Insiders from your desktop. That's very helpful because then you don't have to try to search for it somewhere else. So I always recommend turning that option on because it is turned off by default. So pressing space will turn that on for you.
Space checked.
I'm going to press down arrow to review my options.
Add open with Code-Insiders action to Windows Explorer file context menu checkbox not checked.
Okay, so add to the file context menu. So what this will do is if you're in Windows Explorer and let's say that you have a file that you want to open, you can press Shift and F10 and you can find the context menu and it will say open in VS Code. So you can actually open that particular file directly in VS Code from your directory context menu. I really recommend this because then, like I said, you have as many ways to open code and that way it makes it a lot easier. So I'm going to press space to check this because it's unchecked by default.
Space checked.
I'm going to press down arrow again.
Add open with Code-Insiders action to Windows Explorer directory context menu checkbox not checked.
So what this will do is it will add the open with, but instead of for a file, it will do it for a folder. So if you want to open up a whole folder in VS Code, this option gives you the ability to do so. So I'm going to press space again to check this.
Space checked. Register Code-Insiders as an editor for supported file types checkbox not checked.
Now, I do not do this one because basically what this will do is it'll say, hey, Windows, tell VS Code, that any file that it supports, it can open up by default. I don't do that because I have had it cause some problems in the past, so I would recommend unchecking it. Okay, and there's one more important option, so we're going to press down arrow and space. And by the way, the default value for that last one was unchecked, so you're good there.
Add to path. Requires shell restart. Checkbox checked.
Okay, so add to path. So what this does is let's say you're in a terminal, a command line, and you want to launch a file from your terminal into VS Code. This allows you to actually do so. So you would type like code-insiders space test.py. And then VS Code would open up to a new file called test.py from your command line. You can do the same thing with a folder too. So I would recommend keeping that checked because if you don't, then you have to try to add it to your path manually and it's kind of a nightmare. But it's a really nice option to have. So I'm going to press tab. And one more note for your Mac users. You Mac users are going to have to install that manually from the command palette, which I will talk about in a little bit. But just as a note, if you do not see that in the installer, don't worry. You're going to have to enable it a different way. Okay, with that disclaimer out of the way, let's press tab.
Less back but next greater button Alt plus N.
Or Alt N.
Install.
Okay. Yep, so this says you want to install it. I'm going to press Alt I.
Next greater cancel button.
And here's our classic NVDA progress beeps here. Have to love them.
Setup Microsoft Visual Studio Code Insiders dialog installing. Please wait. Finish but setup unavailable.
So
Visual Studio
VS Code is launched and we are at a welcome screen here. And this is what you will receive when you first open up VS Code. So what I will do now is I'm going to maximize this window by pressing Windows up arrow. And this welcome page is a place where you can hear about the different ways to use VS Code and learn about keyboard shortcuts. However, I like to disable this because you can access it from the help menu, but it kind of gets in the way sometimes of when I'm actually trying to do things. So I like to disable this. Okay, so let us disable that welcome page real quick. And the way we're going to do it is if you're using a screen reader like NVDA, there are two different modes, right? There's focus and browse. And in order to effectively get to this box, our current mode right now is focus. And focus will allow you to edit like the type text. But we want to get into browse mode, almost like you're browsing a website, because after all, VS Code is made out of web technologies. So I'm going to press insert space.
Clickable.
And you'll hear that sound. And I'm going to press X.
Show welcome page on startup checkbox checked. Not checked.
Okay, so I disabled that. That will make our lives a lot easier. And again, if you want to read that information again, you can go to the help menu by pressing Alt-H. And my friend Brian Guarte, we got together on a Zoom call and we looked at all the VS Code settings and we tried to come up with keyboard shortcuts that would try to make our lives easier for different tasks. You want to open up a new terminal. The command was Control tilde, backtick, whatever that thing is called. But we made it Control T because it's a lot easier to remember. And it'll be a lot easier to, find. And vice versa to kill a terminal, Control Shift K. And if you're a Mac user, I will link to Brian's repo because he has a Mac configuration. And this is my Windows configuration. So I will link to Brian's in the description. And it will also be in the repo. And the repo will have a whole bunch of other documentation that you can read that we put together. So I will link that in the description. Okay, so let's install our custom settings. So the first step to this is we have to install an extension into our VS Code. And this extension is simply called Settings Sync. And what it allows you to do is it allows you to share settings back and forth and sync them, between different machines. But hold up, let's talk about what an extension is first, because we're probably a little confused. So an extension is a program that helps extend the functionality of VS Code. So for example, maybe there's a, Python module or extension, and it basically gives features to the editor that it wouldn't otherwise have. So that's what an extension is. And there are over 23,000 of them. Yes, 23,000 extensions. It's kind of crazy. So there's extensions from like Python to like live server, like running things on a website to, all different extensions. There's a spell checking extension, all sorts of things. So let's install the Settings Sync extension. And our shortcut to do that will be Control Shift X.
Complementary landmark. Search extensions in Marketplace Editor as autocomplete multi-line blank. No extensions found. 2 extensions found in the recommended section.
Okay, so what this is it's saying that currently we don't have any extensions installed, which is okay because we're on a fresh installation of VS Code. So, and also there are 2 recommended extensions. So basically if you have, for example, like, Windows subsystem for Linux enabled or other things, VS Code will actually try to recommend you extensions based on the file types that you open. So it's pretty cool because they'll say, hey, you might like this extension. And if you get sick of those, you can turn them off. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in Settings Sync.
SETTINGSSYNC.
Enter.
176 extensions found in the Marketplace section.
I'm going to press Tab.
Extensions list clickable with 1 item. Settings Sync 3.4.3 Synchronize settings, snippets, themes, file icons, launch, key bindings, workspaces and extensions across multiple machines using GitHub Gist, ShanCon tool.
And you can either do this in browse or focus mode with NVDA. Either way it will work. I just happen to be in browse, but what you can do then is you can press Tab.
Toolbar, install button, install. Installing extension settings sync started. An editor is now open with more details on this extension. Extensions list. Extension settings sync Visual Studio Code Insiders document. Installing extension settings sync is completed. Frame scroll to top button number settings sync tweet graphic link HT.
So obviously NVDA likes to ramble, but there's one important thing that NVDA set up all that. The extension settings sync is completed, and we have to reload VS Code in order to apply it. Now, reloading is as simple as pressing Alt F4 and then going back into it. So that is what we will do. Press Alt F4.
Folder view list. Recycle V. Visual Studio Code Insiders 2.
I'm going to launch it from my desktop
Visual
here.
Studio Code Insiders. Document blank. Application. Virtual
And
document.
From here, we will have the welcome
info.
page.
You have Windows.
Okay, yep. So I told you it'll give you like tidbits about, hey, you have this installed. Do you want to install this? So it'll give you like notifications, and we'll talk about notifications later in the course, how to access them. And it will be a lot easier with our custom key bindings. Okay, so what we'll do is there's a couple ways that we need to do this. So there's a couple things that we need to do. First is we need to download the public GitHub settings repo that we have. And basically what you do is you enter in a special ID that I will give you, and it will also be in the description, and it's in the repo documentation. So you will download this, and then it will download the settings from our repo. And if we update them for some reason, then you will still get the updated settings. So it'll be pretty cool because, you know, if we find something over time, we can kind of add it in and, you know, obviously let you guys all know. Okay, so what we'll do is I'm going to now see if I have the ID on my clipboard. So basically it's a long ID, and let's see here. Okay, I think I do. Okay, so there are two ways to actually find the button we need. And so if you're an NVDA user or any screen reader, you can press Insert F7 for links or elements list. And because this is a web app, you can actually use your web commands to find the download public gist button. So that's actually what I'm going to do. The other alternative is to press Tab, which is a little bit less efficient. Whoops.
V3 points at Parker.
All right, hold on.
Elements list.
There we go. Okay, so I'm going to press D.
D. Download public gist 10 of 20 levels. Welcome
Enter.
to settings sync Visual Studio Code Insiders document. Application. Virtual document. Document. Heading level 5 link at Parker Karthik for PR. Welcome to settings sync Visual Studio Code Insiders document. Application. Enter gist edit. Press enter to confirm your input or escape to cancel blank.
Wow, that was a lot of input. And I just kind of wanted you guys to see how that was. But there's only one thing in there that stood out. Enter the gist ID and press enter. So let's see if I still have it on my clipboard here.
Blank.
Nope, I don't. Okay, so what I'll do is I'm going to actually go into my text file that I have it stored in.
Start
And
it.000.
copy this whole thing here. And I'm going to press enter.
Welcome to settings sync Visual Studio Code application. Complementary landmark. Code settings sync output document. Code settings sync output editor as autocomplete multi-line real-time extension download summary. Info. New live server at 5.6. Browser preview integration. Auto fallback to random port and fixed.
Okay. Now you're hearing a whole bunch of things and you're probably thinking, what? Like, what is all this? So a lot of these, like I said, are extensions that I use on a daily basis for work. And I included them because I feel like, you know, they're very helpful.
Info. Do you want to?
But don't worry. We're going to go through all of these in this VS Code course. So you don't have to worry if you're not sure what any of these are yet. That's not the purpose of this video. But you heard, do you want to reload VS Code to take these settings in effect? Yes, I want to. So how do we reload? We'll press Alt F4 and then go back into it.
It.txt. Folder view list.
Enter.
Visual Studio Code Insiders. Document blank.
Okay. Now, we should have a new document in front of us. I did not hear NVDA say, I guess I did. Let me press Insert T to see the title.
Visual Studio Code Insiders.
Okay. I'm going to press Control N.
Application. Main landmark. Untitled -1 editor as autocomplete multi-line blank.
All right. We should be set up, and to confirm, I'm going to press Control T.
Complementary landmark. Document. Terminal 1. CMD edit blank. Microsoft Win.
And that's another thing we changed, that we, instead of using the PowerShell, we use the CMD, because the CMD is a lot more screen reader accessible at this time. And so I wanted to make sure that it was, the most accessible configuration. So if you're on Windows, just to note that. So if you heard that terminal when you press Control-T, you should be all set up with our custom key bindings. And that will do it with this video. Please like, share, subscribe, promote it to your friends, and let's see how we can do to make this editor the most accessible for all. All right, guys, I hope to see you in the next video, and I will talk to you guys shortly.
Meeting control mute audio stop. T downloads untitled pay document zoom row 2. Start search list tabs get meeting VScode open more new pause edit more doc stop shit.